I think the biggest challenge is history. I think it's the kind of lack of women role models, the fact that what's valued sometimes in industry or in the workplace generally are not the attributes that women normally bring, just because of the way things have evolved over the years. And I think as a result of all that, there are very few role models for women, or fewer, and the behaviors that women tend to exhibit aren't always the ones that are valued in the workplace. So to me, it's history is the biggest challenge, and it's not insurmountable, but it is a huge challenge.
I guess one big challenge that I see is, as a woman who's also a mom, trying to balance both work and home life, having a job that's got some flexibility and having to make that understood with your colleagues and clients when you're not always available on a 9-to-5 basis. We didn't have as big of a maternity leave as other countries, so we sometimes are having to juggle very small children and keeping up with our work.
76 cents on the dollar.
For me, I see the biggest challenge is overcoming the salary differential between men and women, and just even find the courage to speak up and kind of ask for a raise, I guess.
I think one of the biggest challenges facing women in the workplace today is finding leadership roles and securing those leadership roles within their companies and organizations.
I think the biggest challenge facing women in the workplace is a sort of false view that we live in a meritocracy and women will somehow rise to the top if they're good enough, because I think there's an awful lot of really excellent, smart, hard-working, dedicated women out there who do a fabulous job and still don't rise to the top because they don't have people helping them get to the top, unlike men who in many cases do have people helping them get to the top.
From my perspective, I'd probably say having everything in terms of the ideal workplace situation, as well as family, kids, home, all of that great stuff.
I think the biggest challenge is for women gaining advancement to higher level positions, which is primarily male dominated.
I think that although we all pat ourselves on the back and think we've come a long way in terms of women and childbearing and raising children, at the end of the day, the balance of family and being what is almost always the primary caregiver in a lot of ways continues to be the biggest hurdle for women, because it puts a huge amount of pressure on women that no matter the best father on the planet, they don't feel the same pressure.
Other than myself, I would have to say Hillary Clinton. I think the most important thing that Hillary Clinton did for us was empowering us by saying that it takes a village, because women now know, or it's been more acceptable for women to be able to do it all and realize that we do need some help. We can still be the sisterhood of the traveling pantsuits, but we can take control both at home and in the workplace. And I love Hillary. Hillary 2016.
Like a good answer would probably be Michelle Obama, but then there's also like Angelina Jolie, who's like,
I think it would have to be Beyonce. She really spreads the message of girl power, woman power to all of the younger audiences and some of the older audiences.
Susie Wolf.
Hillary Clinton.
I would have to say Malala, having just read her book, who stood for the right to female education, not just in Pakistan but for children everywhere, and so I think is a worthy winner of the Nobel Peace Prize.
Beyonce. For this one I've chosen Jessica Ennis-Hill, who's the 2012 Olympic heptathlete champion. I've chosen her for 3 reasons. Firstly, because she withstood enormous pressure to become the home favourite who won a gold medal in London. Secondly, because she's had a baby subsequently, and then this year she's returning to full-time competition and hopefully at a world-class standard. And the third reason, and the main reason I've chosen her, is that last year she spoke out against Ched Evans being re-signed by Sheffield United. She's a Sheffield girl. Her name is on a stand at Sheffield United at their home ground at Bramall Lane, and she said that if they re-signed Ched Evans after his release from his conviction for rape, she wouldn't want her name on that stand and wouldn't want to be associated with the club. So she used her position to speak out against something else, so for that reason.
To say
Oprah. Female role model, in my view, is Gloria Steinem. Back in her feature articles, what she did to push women's issue and women's exploitation, it really did a lot, and a lot of the benefits, we're still enjoying them today. So I think she's incredibly influential.
Michelle Obama.
I'd have to say Mindy Kaling. I think she's hysterical and brilliant, and she dispels the notion that warmth and intellect are mutually exclusive.
I was going to say the vote, but actually when I thought hard about it, I think it must be the availability of the contraceptives.
I'd say the biggest gender equality achievement in the past 100 years was the women's right to vote, which we're coming up on 100 years, I think, 1920.
I'd say the appointment of the first woman to the Supreme Court.
The biggest gender equality achievement in the past 100 years is Marie Curie being the first woman to be awarded a Nobel Prize, and the first person ever to receive 2 of them. First winning the Nobel Prize for Physics, and then the Nobel Prize for Chemistry. Marie Curie is an inspiration to...
I would say birth control has had a huge influence.
I think one of the biggest gender equality achievements recently has been the acceptance of women's issues into the larger discussion of gender as a whole. Previously, treating women's issues as separate from gender issues or men's issues implied that there was something different or lesser about gender equality, when in reality both sides deserve the same fair shake in the discussion and any solutions that arise from it.
So, I'm not going to answer any of the 3 questions that Parveen's asked me, not out of perversity, but I just thought I'd share something which struck me a few years ago and which has stayed with me ever since. So a few years ago I was the linguistics editor back at Blackwell's and had a wonderful author called Jennifer Coates, who since became a rather good friend, and she wrote a book called Women Talk. And the book was a study of what happens when women friends get together and have a natter. And what she found, she and her students found, was that women talking amongst each other riff off each other rather in the way that a jazz band does. So they improvise, they start with one idea and then they build on it, and then someone kind of comes in from another direction and modifies that. So Jennifer Coates kind of built on this idea of women's language as being like a kind of cooperative jazz ensemble, and said that, I think made the very valid point, that it's kind of fundamentally constructive and teamy in its orientation. Now then, one of the things I firmly believe is that an organisation gets absolutely nowhere unless we work as a team. And to work as a team, we need linguistic habits that involve things like yes, and, as opposed to linguistic habits which go no, but. So I think what I'd like to add to this conversation is that, in this sense, it's rather critical to our success that women's voices get heard, and that kind of women's discourse, that natural way of cooperating and thinking and working constructively in a team, all of that is fundamental to our success and desperately needs to be encouraged.